to NoDQ Live. This is day 2 of the 12 days of NoDQ Live. As we get closer to the holiday, I have decided to be ambitious and do something I've never done before. 12 straight nights of live videos. Days, nights, whatever. Thank you all for tuning in. I really do appreciate it, whether it's live or on demand. Now, today's main topic will be the worst year in WWE history. Yesterday, on day 1, I discussed the best year or the best years in WWE history. So today, we'll talk about the worst. People in here saying Happy Rusev Day in the chat room. David Roman saying Happy Rusev Day. Happy Rusev Day to you guys as well. John Doe says Happy Rusev Day. By the way, if you guys have not seen it, go over to NoDQ.com and check out the Rusev Day Sexy Brute music video. This guy actually did a cover of Shawn Michaels' theme song with Rusev Day doing the voice impression of Rusev. It is awesome. You definitely have to check it out over at NoDQ.com. Now, the main topic today, worst year in WWE history. I see a lot of people in the chat room saying 2010, 2009, 2017. Creeper Gamer XX said 2017 is the worst year, question mark, do you think? No, 2017 is definitely not the worst year in WWE history, in my opinion. It hasn't been a great year, but there are several years that I would say are worse. 2010 was a pretty bad year, I will say that. 2010, as far as recent WWE history, 2000 and beyond, I would say 2010 was probably the worst year in WWE, with 2015 being close. But 2010 had, in my opinion, a very lackluster WrestleMania, with the exception of the main event, Shawn Michaels versus Undertaker, career versus streak. You had the Nexus angle, which had so much potential when it started, but then fizzled out and ended up being a huge dud. You had Matt Striker on commentary. Creeper Gamer XX says 2017 was the best, so he really likes it. Maybe he hasn't been watching WWE for that long. Nathan Banks says, hey Aaron, how's it going, Nathan? Thank you for tuning in live. Billy says the Anonymous GM days were the worst. Was that the Anonymous GM 2010? I'm pretty sure it was. I know that John Laurinaitis came into the picture in 2011 after CM Punk dropped the whole pipe bomb thing. We have Cindy in the chat room. Matt Striker is a total meh. Yeah, I totally agree with that. Matt Striker on commentary. Just everything about WWE in 2010. Maybe NXT was alright when you had the rise of Daniel Bryan in WWE. That was pretty cool. CM Punk with the Straight Edge Society was alright. SummerSlam was a big disappointment. And then, of course, John Cena joining Nexus. Stab Studios just left a $2 super chat donation. Thank you, Stab. 93 and 95 are arguably the worst years, he says. I agree. For those of you that are saying 2010, 2015, 2017, nothing is worse than 1993 and 1995. That whole period, 94 had a few redeeming qualities, like the Owen Hart-Bret Hart feud and Shawn Michaels and Razor Ramon. 1993, I would say, is overall the worst year in WWE history. Hence the thumbnail with Giant Gonzalez and Undertaker. As bad as 2010 was and 2015, you do not have Undertaker, Giant Gonzalez bad in those years. 2014. 2014 was, I think, a good year. It was the launch of the WWE Network. We got a million WWE Network references, but we had the Shield breakup. We had the rise of Daniel Bryan. I actually think 2014 was a pretty good year. Pretty good. But let me explain 93. 93 was coming off of a scandal in WWE. Actually, more than one scandal. You had the whole steroid scandal with Hulk Hogan and the other big guys in WWE. And you also had the sexual abuse scandal with Pat Patterson and Mel Phillips, the ring announcer from the 80s. There was all this controversy in WWE, and the popularity of the company had taken a real nosedive in 1992. All of a sudden, the guys like Hogan and Warrior and British Bulldog were being phased out, and Bret Hart was being pushed. You would think this would be a good thing, but in 93, the quality of the product was just so bad. You had all these really lame cartoon characters. You had Bastion Booger as a character. You had Damien Demento. You had Giant Gonzalez in this awful bodysuit that he was wearing. It was one of the lamest gimmicks of all time. And WrestleMania 9 was a huge dud. Of course, Undertaker, Giant Gonzalez, and just the entire card was not good. And then you had Hulk Hogan come back, win the WWE title, and that did absolutely nothing for business. Then you had Hogan fade out again, and you had the rise of Lex Luger, which led to Lex Luger versus Yokozuna at SummerSlam, which again was a huge dud. This was Luger's big opportunity to become a major star, to become the new Hulk Hogan, and WWE decided to end the pay-per-view with a countout. And Lex Luger acted like he won the world title. He was so happy to win this match, the main event of SummerSlam, by a countout. It was such a huge disappointment. And back then, you only got 4 or 5 pay-per-views a year. So it was even a bigger disappointment when you get one of the few big matches of the year and it ends in a countout. You also had Shawn Michaels versus Mr. Perfect on that SummerSlam card. One of the most disappointing SummerSlam matches of all time, in my opinion. 93 was not a good year in WWE. You just had a lack of interesting storylines, a lack of interesting characters, and the company was at its all-time bottom when it came to popularity. It was the start of a rebuilding. The rebuilding was more in 94 with Shawn Michaels and Razor Ramon and Bret Hart and Owen Hart. 93 was just a weird year that was stuck between the golden era of Hulk Hogan and the new generation era, which would start in 94. Let's move on here to 95. Yes, Jason, Raw did debut in 93, and the early Raws, the first couple months of Raw, those Raws were pretty good, and there were a few good Raws in the fall, but other than that, Raw was disappointing more times than not. Yes, you did have some highlights. You had Razor Ramon and 1-2-3 Kid, and you had Crush turning heel on Randy Savage. There were a few highlights, but a lot of very forgettable stuff as well. WCW, as Stab Studios mentioned, WCW was pretty bad in 93 as well, with the exception of, I think, the Ric Flair and Vader storyline. As Michael Gonzalez says, early 90s were terrible. Ico Pro. Enough said. Ico Pro just being shoved down everybody's throats. Wrestling Fortune 44. Are we going to get 2 No DQ lives on Monday and Tuesday? Yes. Those are part of the 12 days of No DQ live. So it will be business as usual on Monday and Tuesday nights. TJS, our moderator, says 95. 95 was another terrible year. You had WWE just coasting along. WCW was slowly building up momentum. WWE had one of the worst WrestleManias of all time with WrestleMania 11. Lawrence Taylor for the New York Giants. I got it. I know the team he played for now, so you guys can stop teasing me about that. You had all these lame celebrity appearances, people that clearly never watched wrestling a day in their lives, and all those celebrities that were at WrestleMania 11 did absolutely nothing to boost WWE business. Bigelow lost to Lawrence Taylor. It did nothing for Bam Bam's career. Shawn Michaels and Diesel was very disappointing. Everyone wanted to see Shawn win the title, and it didn't happen. Bret Hart, Bob Backlund, the I Quit match was probably Bret Hart's most disappointing big WWE pay-per-view match in his entire career. That WrestleMania was terrible. What about King of the Ring 95? Goodness gracious, one of the worst pay-per-views of all time. Mabel is the King of the Ring winner, and that led to SummerSlam, another terrible main event. Kevin Nash is WWE champion. one of the worst drawing champions of all time. You had all these bad matches with Kevin Nash. The only good matches Nash had were with Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels. You had Kevin Nash versus Sid a bunch of times. You had Kevin Nash versus Mabel as the main event of SummerSlam. It wasn't until Nitro started kicking WWE's butt, they started turning things around in WWE with Survivor Series, Bret Hart versus Diesel, and the angle with Shawn Michaels getting the enziguri kick from Owen Hart. It wasn't until the end of the year we started seeing WWE start to take things more seriously and phase out the goofy characters like Doink the Clown and Duke the Dumpster Droese and start moving in a more edgier direction. It wasn't until the end of '95, but most of '95 was pretty lackluster in WWE. And who can forget the stupid Howard Finkel tuxedo match with Harvey Whippleman? Do you think '96 was good or bad? '96 was a good year in WWE. Not a great year. It was a transitional year again, as WWE was starting to move into the Attitude Era. There were some early signs, of course, in '96. Brother Nero says, talk about the worst years in TNA. Wouldn't it save more time just to talk about the few good years in TNA? I mean, almost every year in TNA was the worst year, arguably. Michael Gonzalez says 96 was okay. 2009 with the Raw guest host, says TJS. Yeah, 2009 was pretty bad. I went to a Raw in 2009 when it was the whole Denver debacle thing. I don't know if you guys remember that. And that was when Mr. Kennedy came back and then got fired later in the week because he apparently hurt Randy Orton. That Raw was terrible. And 2009, yeah, the guest host thing was really lame. And you guys know, I think you guys know by now, for those of you that watch this regularly, you know, in my opinion, the worst Raw guest host of all time. Somebody out there can name it, I'm sure. A lot of those guest hosts, more times than not, were bad. The only ones I liked, I liked Shaq. I liked, you know, Shaq is actually a real fan, which is why it was good. I liked Jesse Ventura. Jesse and Vince recreating Saturday Night's Main Event. TJS got it. Summerfest. Yes. The Summerfest with Jeremy Piven and Dr. Ken. That was so bad. Jeremy Piven, I think, was the worst guest. I mean, that guy had zero interest in being there. Al Sharpton was another bad one. There were more bad ones than good ones. Let's just put it that way. Bob Barker was pretty good. At least he had a good time. 2007 was a bad year. Yeah, 2007 was a mixed bag. I think I did mention this on the last video about how once the Chris Benoit stuff went down, WWE started to move in a more PG direction and it hurt the quality of the show. WrestleMania I thought was pretty good. Ouch. Somebody just said, Ryan Frank said TJS is a mark. I hate to break it to you, Ryan, but we're all marks. And mark is such an outdated phrase. A mark is a carny term for somebody that thinks wrestling is real. So when you call somebody a mark, what are you calling them exactly? I mean, we're all fans. All of us watching this and watching WWE, we're all fans. For people that still think wrestling's real, maybe they're still marks. You know, a mark could be somebody who's a sucker who will buy into anything. That could be defined as a mark. But it's an old carny term, and people still use it today like you're insulting somebody who's a fan of something, which I think is a bit silly. The Senate says it's still real to me. Tom Abbey says 1991 question mark. Not at all. I think 91 is a great year. 91 had a lot of awesome storylines. WrestleMania 7, Randy Savage, Ultimate Warrior. Miss Elizabeth and Randy Savage reuniting. Great moment in WWE. SummerSlam, I thought was a really entertaining show. Legion of Doom winning the tag titles from the Nasty Boys. Bret Hart, Mr. Perfect, great SummerSlam match. The Mountie going to jail. Very funny segments with the Mountie in the jail cell. The match made in heaven, the match made in hell. Heel Jake the Snake Roberts. Great storyline with Randy Savage and the Snake. And Jake Roberts slapping Miss Elizabeth. Ric Flair. Bobby Heenan and the world title. The real world champion. Hulk Hogan. Comparing Hulk Hogan to Ric Flair is like comparing ice cream, or excuse me, horse manure to ice cream. with Hogan being the manure and Flair being the ice cream. Great stuff in 91. 91 was a great year in WWE. So for those of you that are younger fans out there and you want to watch some old stuff, go back and watch 91 WWE. That was a great year for WWE. Danny says, was 2006 bad? I think 2006 was a good year. I wouldn't say it was a great year, but I think that you had some memorable moments with the return of DX, and you had ECW One Night Stand 2, and even though it had mixed results, mostly bad results, you did have the rebooting of ECW, which was interesting. 2005 I thought was a good year overall. I liked WrestleMania despite the main events being disappointing. The rise of John Cena and Batista. I talked about, on one of these recent videos, I talked about Batista and Triple H being my all-time favorite Batista match. That was a great one. Ty Marshall says, do you think 2011 was terrible? No, I think 2011 was a pretty good year. The CM Punk pipe bomb. I got the shirt right here. 2011, The Rock came back. You had some memorable moments in 2011. Not a very good WrestleMania, but overall, I think there were more fun moments in 2011 than forgettable moments. And it was a good year for NoDQ.com in business because with The Rock coming back and CM Punk coming back, wrestling got interesting for a while. Darren, you asked me what was the best year. Go back and watch yesterday's video. For those of you that have not watched yesterday's video, I talk about the best years in WWE. Go check that out if you haven't already. And please spread the word. If you're watching this, you enjoy this video, please share it on social media. Jeremiah Dorset says, was 2001 terrible because of the ECW, WCW invasion? 2001 was a very surreal year. Oh, and James here just left a $2 Super Chat donation. Follow NoDQ, DOTCOM on Instagram. See the NoDQ Udios. NoDQ Bootios or whatever. Yeah, go check that out. Instagram.com/NoDQDOTCOM. James runs that account. And by the way, I know TJS said he did not see the last video in his subscription box. So for whatever reason, if you guys don't see the live video, make sure you follow NoDQ on social media. Follow NoDQ DOTCOM on Twitter and Facebook. And you can turn on mobile notifications so you can get updates right to your phone. And I always post in advance when I'm going to be doing a live video, so you can make sure you can arrange whatever you're doing, whatever your schedule is, and be here for the live video. 2001 was just a very surreal year. It had a lot of highs and a lot of lows. Some of the highs include WrestleMania 17 minus the Austin heel turn, the invasion when you had the big moments like Paul Heyman coming out and merging WCW and ECW, Steve Austin coming out and stunning all the Alliance members. But then you had a lot of negatives. You had negatives like the Austin heel turn, the second Austin heel turn, and of course the biggest one, in my opinion, the worst thing to ever happen to wrestling in terms of the business and how it affected the business in a negative way, was the end of WCW. Ryan, I will be answering some random questions here in a few minutes. Versus podcast, how do you make donations? There should be a button at the bottom where you send in a chat message. There should be a $sign button there that you can click on. As Kayfabe Candy asks, gotta make sure I say it correctly. Business shot down when Austin turned. That is exactly correct. You look at the ratings, you look at the house show numbers. They dropped in those months after the Austin heel turn. So yeah, 2001, with WCW and ECW going out of business, that was not a good year for wrestling. Oh, and Cindy just left a $2 Super Chat donation. Thank you, Cindy. 2014, 2015 with the Authority storyline was so bad. Let's talk about 2015. I think 2014 was all right with the Authority storyline, but by 2015, it was getting stale. I definitely feel Stephanie and Triple H were wearing out their welcome by 2015. Of course, we had the rise of Roman Reigns, the Royal Rumble, which was pretty much universally hated, that Royal Rumble. WrestleMania was really good, though. WrestleMania was, I would say, actually a great show. at Levi Stadium in San Jose. And I was at that show, of course, when Seth Rollins cashed in Money in the Bank. Great moment. But it stalled in the later part of the year. I felt like by the end of the year, it was really bad. Survivor Series was a huge dud. And to be fair, a lot of guys got hurt, if you recall, during the end of 2015. Ultimate Gaming Prankster says, say my name. Well, there you go. Cindy says J&J Security. Yeah, that was pretty lame, the J&J Security, I thought. But Survivor Series, I thought was really lame. The Sheamus Roman Reigns feud, even though Reigns did get cheered for a couple of weeks because of Vince, I think, mostly. They were basically putting Roman Reigns in the Steve Austin role, hoping he would get cheered. And it did work for a few weeks. When Reigns won the title the night after the TLC pay-per-view, it was in Philadelphia where the Rumble was, and Reigns actually got cheered. So the storyline did work to a degree. But yes, TJS mentioned the Tater Tots line. That was so bad. 2015 was a very mixed bag, but I would say creatively it was pretty weak. David says Roman Reigns sucks. Mahal is injured, apparently. I don't know if he's telling me the truth or not, but I will check on that after this video. And Vince Out of Touch McMahon says, suffering succotash. Kayfabe Candy S says that Sheamus feud was one bad promo after another. I totally agree on that. And Cindy mentions the, quote, women's revolution. Yeah, with Nikki Bella and her whole thing. Percy 3100 needs to go. Bye-bye. I'm not going to repeat what he's saying in there. League of Nations, as Justin S. mentioned. Yeah, thank you for reminding me. You know, I try to block out this really bad content out of my brain, like League of Nations and that promo where it was Charlotte and who was the other person? But they were mentioning, was it Paige? I'm not sure. The promo where Reed was mentioned, that was really bad. That was a terrible segment, and League of Nations was one of the worst factions of all time. All right, let's move on here. I did talk about the worst years in WWE. Let's go to some random questions now. This one comes from Ryan. Your thoughts on Triple H beating Jinder Mahal? To be honest, I'm not surprised because Jinder Mahal has cooled off so much. I think it's a sign WWE has really given up on Mahal because there's really no reason for Triple H to be beating Jinder Mahal in India. Why do that unless you've completely given up on Mahal? Now, if Mahal wins the title back now, I am going to just be completely out of my mind because that would be insane. For Mahal to lose in India, and you know what? Some could argue, well, you know what? It's a house show, it doesn't count. The problem with that logic is that so many people are on social media now. WWE posted it on their website, on their Twitter, on their Facebook. Pretty much anybody who goes online to talk about wrestling or view wrestling content, whether it's WWE or NoDQ or another site, you're going to know that Triple H beat Jinder Mahal. And as TGS mentioned, Triple H got a really good reaction, a bigger reaction than Mahal in India, which is something I knew. I knew all along Mahal was not going to get that big of a reaction because people in India have told me this. Brother Nero, do you think Owen Hart is underrated? I think he should be in the Hall of Fame. I think Owen Hart is great. One of the best performers in the 90s, no doubt. I think he's underrated just for the fact that WWE doesn't draw too much attention to him because of Martha Hart, Owen's widow, not wanting him to be recognized and doesn't want his career being mentioned. She doesn't want to be associated with wrestling at all or have Owen associated with wrestling at all just because of what happened to him. Versus Podcast Ireland. Do you think the Young Bucks are overrated? I like the Young Bucks. I mean, that's a hard question for me to answer. I think they have a lot of potential to be successful in WWE, and I think they're doing the right moves because they're making themselves, they're playing hard to get. And I think WWE will sign them at some point. Same thing with Kenny Omega. I think the Young Bucks are a great team. I don't think they're overrated. I think they're doing a great job at what they're doing. So that's all I'm going to say about them. I do like the Young Bucks. I like Kenny Omega, but it's not like I think it's the greatest thing in the world. I'll just say that. But I do think that they're very entertaining, and I think WWE will pick them up at some point. And I think they're playing the business in a smart way. Kayfabe Candy S says Young Bucks deserve their success. Ty Marshall, your favorite Bret Hart match? Steve Austin, WrestleMania 13, no doubt about it. Mr. Tank says, what do you think about Jay Lethal going to WWE? Polish greeting from the UK, longtime fan. Well, thank you for tuning in. I'd love to see Jay Lethal in WWE. I think it should absolutely happen. He should get the opportunity. True Always just left a $2 super chat donation. Thank you, True Always. Delix Man for Season 3 of Wrestling Trivia Challenge. I'm all for it. If he's interested in doing it, you guys tweet to him, let him know that the door is open. If he would like to be on Wrestling Trivia Challenge, I would love to have him on. I would love to have him on the NoDQ panel. Wrestling Fortune 44 says OTRS Central to join the panel. Absolutely, let's bring him on too. Make sure you guys check out the NoDQ panel, by the way. I got the shirt in the background. Go over to ProWrestlingTees.com. Use the code SAVE5, by the way, to get a small discount on your order. Check that out. Pick up the t-shirts. That's the best way you can you can support the site. Subscribe also, which is what I was trying to say. Subscribe to the channel and tell a friend. Spread the word. Seth K20 Stream Archive. Could you get Vito, Big Vito, to be on Wrestling Trivia Challenge? I would be down for that. I'm open to that. If Vito wants to do it, we'll get him on for sure. Season 3. I mean, that would be huge. That would be huge. Big Vito versus Jeff Meacham for the Wrestling Trivia Championship. I like it. Good mic work. I'm definitely open to having him on as well. Thoughts on TNA guys leaving and coming to WWE, says Ryan. I mean, it should happen because TNA guys are barely getting paid. They're barely making any kind of blip on the radar screen. So yeah, it's only natural to want to work for WWE, especially coming from TNA. Get Don Tony on. Again, I'm open to all these guys if they want to be on. Mitch says, who would win, Lashley or Lesnar? Are you talking about a real fight? I mean, if it's a worked fight, then I'd have Lesnar win. I mean, no question about it. If it was a real fight, I think Lashley could have a chance potentially. I'm not sure their ages off the top of my head. I'm not sure if Lashley is that much younger than Lesnar. If he is, I would give the edge to Lashley, but somebody would have to look that up, their ages. You know, Lashley's doing pretty well for himself, and I feel like maybe Lesnar's past his peak as far as an MMA fighter goes. So I really don't have enough knowledge and expertise in the field of MMA to really give a good answer on that, but I would tend to go with youth. So if Lashley is 5 years younger, I'm not sure their ages though, so I don't really want to commit to an answer on that. Looking at some of the other comments here. Just tweeted RTRS Central. Let's see if he responds. Definitely. Nawad Ahmed says, is Mandy Rose hot? Definitely. She's extremely attractive. You know, I would say she's a 10. I mean, she's gorgeous. So if she can become a great wrestler, if she can become a 10 in the ring and a 10 as a character, she could be the biggest female star of all time. I'm being told Lashley's actually older than Lesnar, so I don't know. I cannot call that one. I did not think Lashley was over 40. Wow. I did not think he was that old. Yeah, everyone's telling me Lashley is 41 and Lesnar is 40. Philip M says Rose is overrated. Well, she's got a ways to go. I mean, I feel like she hasn't really shown much in terms of being a character and cutting promos and wrestling, so we really don't know how far she'll go. Cosmetically, she's a great fit for WWE, but will she be able to learn the skills to be a long-term superstar in WWE? Do you see WrestleMania 34 being Lesnar's last? It depends. I think if WWE offers him a new deal and it's good money, Lesnar will take a deal and he'll stick around for as long as he can. As long as he can keep making the big bucks, why not? He's only wrestling 4 or 5 times a year and he's making a lot of money. So if I'm him and my body is still in good shape, I would do it too. I would keep going if the company's just throwing big money at me. So I think it's going to depend on WWE if they want to keep paying Brock Lesnar the big bucks. I think a lot of us feel like Lesnar is played out in WWE, and I honestly feel that way. I'm tired of it. I just want to see Lesnar put over somebody and call it a career. This same bit of Lesnar coming out every couple of months and Heyman doing the same promo. My name is Paul Heyman, blah, blah, blah. I'm bored of it. And I know all the sheep like to say it along with Paul Heyman, but I'm tired of it. We need something different. TJS says, are you reviewing Wrestling Kingdom or just the Y2J match? I would check out Jericho's match. I don't know if I'll watch anything else, really, to be totally honest with you. I really don't have that much desire to watch it. Ryan Frank, what are your cats' names? Go to youtube.com/AaronRift. I have their names on there. You can find that out on the channel and check out some awesome cat videos. Wrestling Fortune 44, favorite wrestling tournament of all time. Favorite wrestling tournament? That's a tough question to answer. I like the 93 King of the Ring tournament, ironically enough, because earlier I was saying 93 was WWE's worst year. But I did like Bret Hart winning the tournament, and there were a few good matches, really good matches. Bret Hart and Bigelow had a very solid match. Bret Hart and Mr. Perfect, not as good as SummerSlam, but still a very solid match. And Bret Hart winning was good. And I like the one-night tournaments. Even though critics have been negative on it, I like WrestleMania 4. I know at the time Dave Meltzer wasn't high on it, and a lot of wrestling historians thought it was a terrible show. I personally was entertained by WrestleMania 4. And I hate to say it, Dave Meltzer might not like this, but I would rather watch WrestleMania 4 than Kenny Omega versus Okada. So that's just the difference in opinions on wrestling. We're all different. We all have different views on it. As a viewer, I like WrestleMania 4. I thought it was entertaining. Some people, the wrestling's not great, but I love the characters. I love the storyline of Randy Savage having to compete in 4 matches in one night. I like the Hogan-Andre feud. I like the characters, DiBiase trying to, cheat his way to victory and getting the bye. I love the storyline. It's a great story. It's fun to watch, even if the wrestling isn't that good at all, actually. It's still very entertaining nonetheless. Are you shocked that Hogan versus Andre was voted worst worked match of the year? Well, technically, Hogan and Andre did not have good matches. If you look at it strictly from a technical standpoint, just like Hogan and Rock. I mean, Hogan and Rock was better than Hogan and Andre. If you turn off the sound, Hogan and Rock was not that good. I mean, Hogan was doing back rakes to the Rock. There was nothing technically really sound about that match. But it was awesome because of the crowd reaction and the personalities clashing. It was fun to watch. It was magic. It was just entertaining, and that's what wrestling's supposed to be. It's supposed to be entertaining. And I think sometimes people look too much at the technical aspect of it and not the performance aspect. And there's more to good wrestling than just wrestling. Showmanship is part of great wrestling. Being able to go out there and connect with the audience. And Hulk Hogan could do that. Technically, he wasn't great, even though he could do some things. Watch some of Hogan's stuff in Japan. Hogan could do some things in the ring. But in WWE, he was following that template. And this is something I've talked about before. Hogan, Cena, Reigns, they follow a template. It's the superhero babyface template where they go out there, they sell through most of the match, and then at the end, they make their big comeback. They do the 5 or 6 moves that the mainstream casual fans are familiar with, and they get over, and they become major, larger-than-life superstars that way. So that's my little rant on all that. To go back to earlier, I like WrestleMania 4, personally. But anyways, I will go ahead and wrap things up. So save your questions here for tomorrow. Quick programming note. Tomorrow, I will be doing the live video earlier in the day. It will be at 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific, tomorrow, Sunday. So save your questions for tomorrow. Remember, this is just day 2. I got 10 more days of this to go. I'm losing my voice right now, so I'm not going to be like Kenny Omega. Oh, Queen Maria Loves You just left a $2 super chat donation. 3 stars you would love to see win the Royal Rumble. Okay, real quickly. Nakamura, AJ Styles if he loses the title to Mahal, and Finn Balor. So I'll leave it at that. New guys win the Royal Rumble. And on that note, I will wrap this up tomorrow. Again, 3 p.m. Eastern Time, noon Pacific. And I will see you guys later. Thanks for watching.